Are you looking for a better way to play player props or daily fantasy sports? Well, look no further than Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the leading over-under daily fantasy game. Why? Because it's so easy to use and win. You can make your picks in under 30 seconds and win up to 10 times your money in one day. Right now, we have a special offer for our viewers and listeners of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. All you got to do is sign up now and use the promo code BACKPACK. Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. That's right. They'll match your first deposit up to $100. So, join the over 150,000 others who found a better way to play and download the Prize Picks app today. Hard to Tell podcast, episode 209. Dexter Henry, Bryan Fonseca here.
Yes, sir.
Bryan, how are you doing, man?
I am doing quite well, for reasons that we're not going to elaborate too much on.
Okay.
Because we don't want to give out all of our business there. Because a lot of people are posting their bet slips and leaving the amounts of money that they won. I'm not going to do that. Just know that I had a pretty nice, last couple days, and I'm looking to ride the hot hand and withdraw when necessary. Don't put too much in your account.
Well,
when it comes to these gambling things.
You had a good day with weekend, I should say, with the NFL. We're going to talk a lot of NFL on this podcast. We have a guest joining us on this podcast that I'm very excited about. But first, because by the time this podcast drops, I want to let people know some career update news.
We're doing it this week.
We're doing that.
We teased it for like 2 weeks.
And for 2 weeks, especially because of the guest we have today, because I will be working with this guest again. So to let everybody know, I will be working back again for the second time in my career with the New York Post as their weekend sports anchor. I will be doing some videos for them, hosting, and there's a partnership with Sportsnet New York, SNY. So some of the content will be on New York Post and SNY.TV. So excited about it. New chapter.
Yes.
Back in sports full time, not outside in the cold anymore, which is great. So excited about that, man. So just want to announce that on here. People will see that by the time they'll see it on social media, I'm sure. And with that being said, our guest today, guy I worked with when I started working at the Post back in 2007, and that makes me feel old. He is the beat writer for, and you're laughing? You're really? Come on.
Because I'm like, how does 2007 make you feel old? But I'm
not gonna. It was a while ago.
No, I'm not gonna do this because then you're gonna be like, what were you doing in 2007? And I'm not gonna have an encouraging answer for you.
And that's gonna make me feel old. That for sure. I hope I don't make our guests feel old. But back in 2007, started working with him at the New York Post. He is the beat writer covering the New York Giants. Huge Kirby enthusiasm fan like myself. Also knows a lot about the NFL. It's my guy, Paul Schwartz. Paul, welcome to the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast.
Hey guys, look, I can tell you for sure, in 2007, I was not doing a podcast. Okay, I don't think I was not doing a podcast. I do my own podcast with Lawrence Tynes. Blue Rush podcast. And that's a lot of fun. But here's what I would say about Dexter. You coming back? All right.
Okay.
Back then, you made people like me and our Jets beat writer Brian Costello look pretty good in those videos that we did. Pretty good. I'm not saying great because, look what you had to work with here. But we pretty good. So if you could make us look pretty good, you can come back and make us look even better this time around. How's that?
Well, those are kind words, Paul, but the viewers and listeners should know. Paul had TV experience, so he was like I just say I don't want to say any journalists were tough that I worked with at the Post, but he was one of the more seasoned guys for the position. But he worked with me. He was patient. He was always good. Paul, we were joking before we started recording about how we used to have to wait out in the cold, go out in the cold at MetLife Stadium and do these videos. But we got them done, right? We had some fun.
And it would be, the deal was always, look, Dexter, after I finish all my writing,
yes, that was the deal.
Do the podcast, right? So Giants had a game at 1:00. I started writing 4:30, 5 o'clock after the locker room. And, Dexter was very, very patient and things. But, I could tell eventually it's like 7 o'clock, 7:15. It's like, What are you writing? War and Peace there? Come on, let's go. I've read your stuff. You don't need to take that long. But then we go down to the field, right? And it would be cold, and I'd be, we'd get it done. We'd get it done.
Paul is a true pro, Bryan. And now we have to ask you, Paul. I talked about 2007 because Bryan said if he talks about what he was doing in 2007. So Bryan is considerably younger than me and considerably younger than you. Did any of that talk of 2007 make you feel old?
No. I was covering the Giants in 2007, okay? And I'm still covering the Giants. So, that makes me feel happy. Look, you know what makes me feel old? 2007, I covered almost exactly 14 years ago to the day, 15 years ago, I guess, the greatest game I ever covered was the Ice Bowl 2 in Green Bay, right? In Green Bay, Lawrence Tynes kicks a 47-yard field goal to send the Giants to the Super Bowl, minus 24 degrees wind chill. At the time, we thought that was Brett Favre's last game ever. And wouldn't you know it, right? Just this weekend, Robbie Gould kicks a 45-yard field goal in 0 degree or whatever it was in Green Bay. I mean, that is cool, and I had a story in the Post on Monday that Robbie Gould on last Tuesday, called Lawrence Tynes, their buddies, kicking buddies, for some advice. Lawrence, give me anything you can give me about kicking in the playoffs at Green Bay, at Lambeau Field. And Lawrence Tynes said the number one thing I would look. Robbie Gould's a hell of a kicker, and he's never missed. He's now 20 for 20 in the postseason. But what Lawrence Tynes told him, which I wrote in the Post because we're podcast buddies, that look, in warm-ups it's going to be really cold, and some guys are not going to want to go out there and warm up. I remember talking to Monty Toomer after that game in 2007. It was the 2007 season in early 2008. And Monty Toomer said he went out there in warm-ups, went out there, took a breath, his chest froze up, okay? You just, when you get that cold Arctic air in your chest, thing froze up. He said, "The hell with this," and he went back inside. He said, "I'll go out for warm-ups for the game. I'm not warming up an hour and a half. I can't deal with it." So Tynes said, "You have to resist that. Go out, get with your holder, get with your long snapper, get a few kicks in, and then let them go back in. End on a good one, and then you kick on yourself with your little tee there. You kick with yourself and get yourself ready to go. But you have to prepare." Even though it's really cold. And Robbie Gould did that. And as we know, sent Aaron Rodgers and the Packers home, didn't they?
They sent them home. And it's funny, Paul, because I remember that game, watching on TV. Obviously, you were there in Green Bay. I remember working with you on the video with that before up to that week as you're getting ready to head out to the cold. So I remember all that. Bryan, that makes me feel old, Bryan. I remember that with Paul. We were doing that in 2007. But Paul, 2007 to that 2008, that playoff run, that was a fantastic year. Okay, the Giants, we had a couple years later won another Super Bowl. The Giants haven't been that great since then. Last year is disappointing. They were 4-13. How did you survive as a beat writer through this 4-13 disappointing Giants season that we just saw?
So Dexter, that's what I like about you. You said it hasn't been so great. No, that's a really nice way to put it. It hasn't been so great. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years have been dismal. It's not easy. What happens is, you start the season, you think maybe they'll be okay. Look, every 2 years they hire a new coach now, so you have to learn a new coach. You have to learn new coordinators. You have to learn the offensive, and defensive position guys. So everything's different. It was rough. It's rough because, look, you don't root. I'm not a fan. You have to cover teams, whether they're 4-13 or 13-4. I've covered teams that went to the Super Bowl. I've covered teams that finished in last place. But when you're covering a team that's winning and is in the playoff hunt, people are more excited. People are more interested. People really can't wait for the games. Quite frankly, I have to admit this. The Sundays for me were like, I did not look forward to the games because the Giants were bad. They couldn't score. The last 6 games, where they scored 26 points or something overall. They had no quarterback. They had really no chance. I flew to Chicago, in the pandemic, flying is not a picnic, right? I flew to Chicago for that game. And, it's just brutal. These games are brutal. They're brutal to watch. They're brutal to see. You knew guys were going to get fired. They all got fired, the GM and the head coach. So, it's unpleasant. Nobody's happy. Everyone's miserable. The players are miserable. Front office is miserable. So, they don't have to win the Super Bowl every year, but you want a competitive team. You know, you watch those games this weekend, right? And it's like, I want back into those. I want to cover those games with the Giants and then let the chips fall where they may. It's fun. People love it when the Giants are good. So, you know, it's good for business.
Definitely good for business.
I actually want to get right to, because we're already on the off season, or at least for the Giants, we're in the off season, and we're hearing a lot of Brian Flores smoke. Full disclosure, and I think Dexter's with me on this, though we haven't really discussed it. I don't think he should have gotten fired from the Dolphins at all. It didn't make a lot of sense to me. But I am wondering, Brooklyn native, Giants have an opening here. I feel like in terms of identity, or what they aspire to, or what they would like to aspire to be next, it would be a match there. Like, is the smoke between, the Giants and Brian Flores, is there anything to that? And could we potentially see him home?
Well, there's smoke. I don't think there's fire quite yet, though. Look, you have to remember, they've hired a GM, Joe Shane from Buffalo, right? He doesn't really have connections with Brian Flores at all. Look, what do you guys do when you're hiring people, right? You reach out to people you know. These GMs reach out to people they know. So I think the Joe Shane, Brian Daboll connection is very strong. Daboll obviously had a very good weekend. His Bills didn't win, so he's unhappy about that. But Josh Allen, his quarterback, played great. The Bills' offense played great. They didn't win the game. So Daboll is a hot commodity. He will interview Tuesday with the Giants. He is the first guy to get a second interview with the Giants. Brian Flores hasn't gotten in the door yet, even though I think he will be interviewed. Flores. I mean, I was surprised when he was fired from the Dolphins. I think there's a few caveats with him. Number one, why does he go through offensive coordinator so much? I think he fired 3 of them at his time there. He had a reputation for being quote unquote difficult to work with. We'll see about that. Look, he won games. Don't forget, he was the first coach in NFL history to lose 7 games in a season and then win 7 games in the same season in a row. That's unusual, right? So he had a great closing run. He didn't make the playoffs, but he was 1-8, I believe, before that. He'll be a head coach in the league, I think, again, maybe not this cycle. I'm not sure. But you have to investigate, why was he fired, okay? It wasn't just because of football, obviously, because Joe Judge was fired because they were 4-13. It was football related. This was not football related. Personalities. Is he a mix? Is he a match? And one more thing I would say about Flores is, you usually tend to hire the opposites, right? Flores is a lot like Joe Judge in that they're from the Bill Belichick school. Flores has not coached anywhere other than New England for Bill Belichick. Hard guys, hard practices. Joe Judge fired offensive coordinators and fired offensive line coaches. So there's an edge to them, that Belichick way of doing things. Do the Giants want to go down that road a second straight time? Maybe. Flores and Judge are not the same person, right? You're not hiring the same guy. So I'm just saying, I don't think Flores is the favorite. I think he's a considerable candidate. But right now, if I would have to put money on it, I would put money on Brian Daboll.
Paul, do you like the Shane hire as GM? Obviously, he was hired last week. That was announced last week. You've been all over that, of course. Yeah. Do you like the hire of Shane as GM? Do you think he's the right guy to lead this team going forward? Well,
I mean, I would say yes. Now, saying yes and having never met the guy, I researched him. I thought the Giants, I thought, had an excellent GM list. They had 9 guys there. John Mara said afterwards he thinks all 9 guys will eventually be GMs in the league. I thought it was Shane. I thought it was Adam Peters from the 49ers. Who else did I think? Oh, and I thought Poles, Ryan Poles, who was only 36 years old from the Cardinals, were great candidates. Okay, there were some other really good candidates. Rand Carthon, Maurice Carthon, the old Giant fullback, his son interviewed. I heard he did well, but so they had a really good group. I was more impressed with the GM candidates they have than the head coach candidates they are looking at right now, quite frankly. So I think, look, Shane, if he fails, it will not be because he's not prepared or he doesn't have the resume. He's worked for 3 different organizations. He's done really good things in Buffalo. It's time for him to get his own team, and he will get his own team. And, he'll be very different than he's 42 years old. Dave Gettleman is 70. It's a whole new way of doing things for the Giants.
Yeah, so and that I'm glad you just said that thing at the end, a whole new way of doing things for the Giants. When you talk about that, Paul, and Brian and I, we look at organizations in all across all sports, right? How they build the rosters, how you do all the stuff. The Giants have been, I don't even know where I'd say they stuck. Let's just say it's badness, right? They haven't been good. You've talked about how miserable you are at these games. The thing I would ask people who are around the Giants, like yourself, people who are plugged in, what's wrong with the Giants? Do they need a complete change, overhaul? I've been around that team. We know the Maras, they're very proud. We know it's a very proud organization. But does there need to be a new Giants way of doing things, Paul? Like is Mara and the Mara and Tisch family, are they open to doing that?
Yes, yes. I mean, this is the first time since 1979. Okay, you guys want to feel old? 1979, right?
That
Now,
made me feel old.
I was not covering the Giants in 1979. Okay, I was very much alive, but I was not covering the Giants. So that's the last time they hired from outside their organization a general manager. You know, George Young. Ever since then, it was Ernie Accorsi. He was George Young's assistant. Then it was Jerry Reese, Ernie Accorsi's assistant. Then it was Dave Gettleman, who had been with the Giants for 15 years previously. So this is John Mara and Steve Tisch, the co-owners, saying, we need help. We can't do it from within. We can't hire from within our family. So so Joe Schoen is definitely a departure. What they need to do is just do better. Look, you can't reinvent the wheel. You can't not scout the colleges. You can't, not sign, free agents. You have to do these things. If you would say, what is the one problem the Giants have had? It is they've drafted poorly. Okay, so what happens when you draft poorly? Drafted players are cheap labor, right? The first round pick gets a lot of money, but he doesn't get a lot of money compared to a draft pick. So when you draft Kadarius Toney, he's your property, so to speak. He's under your contract for 4 years and possibly 5 with the fifth-year option. He's still cheap compared to Kenny Golladay, who you have to pay $72 million for. So you draft poorly, then you have to make it up by chasing it in free agency, where you have to spend too much money for players who are on the free agent market for a reason. So that's the thing. So if Joe Schoen can come in here and get this draft board in order and start drafting better, don't forget, guys, the Giants have the number 5 and number 7 picks this year. If you hit in the first round, if you hit on both those guys, you have 2 starters for 4, 5, 10 years. Now you're cooking. So draft better, sign players wisely, and pick the right head coach. They have to pick the right head coach here.
Yeah, they definitely do. Go ahead, Brian.
What does the new GM hire? Because usually when we're talking about like organizations and things like that, like people, as you alluded to earlier, they want to bring in their own guys. So I'm wondering, for the players' perspective, what does this actually mean for Daniel Jones, who's been a quarterback for 3 years? Do the Giants feel like they've seen enough, or is the new GM going to try and get their own guy, being that they do have 2 top 7 picks this year in the first round? Though this isn't a great quarterback draft, I figured you can use that to get somebody. And there are also a couple of guys out there, Russell Wilson being one of them, who's going to be seemingly made available during the offseason for trade. Are the Giants sort of looking away from Daniel Jones at this point, given that he's going to be entering his 4th year? And, it's kind of been up and down and inconsistent, though he's shown flashes. You're still not quite sure 3 years in.
Good. A lot of good questions there. Also, don't forget, Daniel Jones is coming off a neck injury. And,
yes.
First and foremost, we have to see if he's going to be healthy enough to play. Right. But
Right.
let's assume he is. I believe, from what I was told, that Joe Schoen, in his interview said, look, I can work with Daniel Jones, not, as opposed to coming in and saying, I don't believe in your quarterback and you got to get a new one. Now, having said that, they will have competition for Daniel Jones. This will not be a Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm situation. They will bring in somebody, whether it's in the draft, I don't expect in the first round, but maybe in the second round, or in a free agent signing, who will be able to compete with Daniel Jones for the starting job. None of this, you're the first round pick, you're anointed here. So that's number one. I think there are all options are on the table. Do I think they're going to get Russell Wilson? No. But look, Daniel Jones has been an okay player. He's been hurt every year he's been in the league so far, and that's a problem, coming off 16 years with Eli Manning not being hurt. The Giants are used to having their starting quarterback healthy and on the field. And look, Joe Schoen was in Buffalo when they got Josh Allen, right? They took a chance on Josh Allen. He was not the top guy. Some people loved him. Some people were lukewarm about him. They took him high in the draft. He was very raw from Wyoming, a big, strong kid who had all kinds of, technical issues. He didn't complete a lot of passes in college. Didn't have great wide receivers, obviously, playing at that level. Did not have a great start to his NFL career. Got hurt. He's a great player right now, right? I think we can all agree he's a great player. Every team would love to have him. So Joe Shane saw that the way you can develop a player. Look, from what we saw of Josh Allen the other day, I can never foresee Daniel Jones being that kind of player. But can he be a player you can win with? Possibly. They need to get better players around them. I think they'll try to do that. They'll get a better offensive line. And then it'll kind of be a 1-year trial for Daniel Jones. They have in May, April or May, they have they have to either pick up his 5th-year option, which would pay him $21 million in 2023, or he'll become a free agent. I see no way they will pick up that 5th-year option.
No.
This is basically a make or break it year for Daniel Jones, and that's a good thing. Let's see what the kid can do.
I think that's also how I would do it, because you could also I don't think they have to use 5 and 7 this year. Like, conceivably, you could try to trade into next year's first round, because if Daniel Jones isn't your guy, maybe you want to get Bryce Young instead, since that's when he's going to be eligible anyway. But another question that I had was regarding Saquon Barkley, sticking with players here, because he's sort of been up and down too. And when he's played, he's mostly looked good, but then he's also had a lot of injuries. And he's going into the last year, I believe the last year of his contract, being that he was a first-round pick several years ago. So, I mean, is he – I'm not going to ask if he's in the long-term plans, because I don't even know if we can go that far. Is he even going to be on the team when they start off this season?
Well, see, these are questions. These are good questions. I don't know Joe Shane. You know what I mean? I don't know who the coach is. Maybe they bring in a coach, Brian Daboll, and Brian Daboll says, look, I don't need a high-priced running back. That's not the way the league is now. We don't have high-priced running backs in Buffalo, and we're doing fine. So do I think he'll be on the team? I do. I think the Giants ownership wants him on the team. I don't think, the new GM, the new head coach will say, look, I'm not coming if Saquon Barkley's on the team. He's a good guy. He's not really that expensive next year. What is he, $7.2 million or something?
Something. Yeah,
like that, it's a lot for a running back. But look, the key with Saquon Barkley is being healthy.
Right.
If he's healthy, then you give it a go with him, right? And look, he had a great rookie year. You can argue, you can debate the should you ever take a running back with the number 2 pick. That we could debate that for 4 hours. But I don't think anyone can debate that his rookie year he was a great player. And,
absolutely.
And he was, and he was like, wow, he's giving us greatness there. The team is not very good. So we can see why you did this, because he's really good. Then he has a high ankle sprain his 2nd year, and then he tears his ACL his 3rd year. So, we need to see more of Saquon. Obviously, we need to see him healthy. And this is the good thing about this. These are make or break years for these guys. Saquon, Daniel Jones. They've done a lot of losing. Do they deserve to be on the team? Yeah, I think you could say they deserve to be. Do they deserve to have long-term commitments? No, they deserve to go on the field and see if they can do it, and see if they're worth getting another contract with the Giants.
Backpack Broadcasting continues to bring you the best original sports content, but now you can get more of the content you love. For as little as $3 a month, you can get access to bonus content, including behind-the-scenes footage and interviews from the Sports Walk, Sideline Stories, or the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast. All this exclusive content comes via Patreon. There are tiered levels of patronage, and each Backpack Broadcasting patron receives exclusive perks. Your support helps Backpack Broadcasting create more of the original content that you love. Visit Backpack Broadcasting's Patreon page and become a patron today. Now look, Paul, you've had to watch a lot of bad football recently.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at the NFL this week, you saw some good football. It was a wild weekend, right? All 4 games came down to the final play, which is insane. How much did you enjoy the NFL football this weekend? Because you deserve it. You absolutely deserve it. Did you have a favorite game? For me, it was Bills Chiefs. Did you have a favorite game that you were able to look at this weekend?
Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's at certain points watching these games, especially look, Packers and 49ers was not an offensive show at all. But the Chiefs Bills, at some points I was watching that game and I was thinking to myself, this is not the same sport that I covered the last few years. It's just not the same sport. I mean, the way these teams are executing on offense and scoring. I mean, 13 seconds and you go down the field to kick a field goal. I mean, the Giants can barely line up in 13 seconds on offense. I mean, it's crazy. Well, look, the Chiefs-Bills game is an all-time game. So to say that wasn't the best game is a little crazy. But I like the cold weather game, the night game, the conditions game. For a variety of reasons, I did not mind seeing Aaron Rodgers lose that game. So, really. So
I wonder why, Paul. I wonder why.
You don't want to get too political on this show.
No. But since
we do sometimes, but we need to.
We do, and since I know you, Paul, I know that we all are probably in the same agreement as to why. I get it. Yes.
Yeah. So let's say there were some non-football reasons that
yes.
I took great delight in seeing Robbie Gould kick that winning field goal, and Aaron Rodgers did not play well, and so that those elements and the cold and the conditions at Lambeau, I've been there, as you said, for these games. That was a really cool game. Like I said, it was 13-10. So if you like offense and highlights, it was not there. You can't compare that to Chiefs Bills, but that was a pretty special game too, and the outcome was, it was kind of satisfying.
Kind of. Bryan, I'm sure you were with Paul where it was satisfying for you too.
Okay, here, Dexter. Here's something you'll know, and Bryan, you need to know. You know what that game was? That game was pretty good.
I know that's from Curved. I do know that. And Dexter, to answer your question, not only did I want Aaron Rodgers to lose in the way that he did, I had money on the 49ers. So, I had the spread, had the money line, had the under, hit all three. So I was feeling good about that.
You were feeling great about
Bryan,
that.
You buried the lead. I had money on the game. I won money. Case closed.
That's all we needed to know. Now, Paul, when you look at the Bills-Chiefs game, right? Because everything that everybody's been talking about after that game is, oh my God, the Bills didn't get a chance to score with the overtime rules and everything about that. How do you feel about that? As somebody who's been around the NFL, covered the NFL for a long time, now we know the rules have been tweaked. They were tweaked a few years back. They tweaked the overtime rules, different from when I grew up watching it. But what do you think about the overtime rules now? Should we change it, or are they fine the way it is right now?
Well, look, the rule that we had previously where first score wins, right, was no good. The offense was too good. No good. You get the ball to 25. You have 3 first downs. The guy kicks a 52-yard field goal. You win. And no good. So, okay, I understand what the NFL did with this. You got to score a touchdown. And look, you know what? I'm not like crazed about it because the people who are now, I'll get to my point about what I think, but I mean, the people who look at that game and say, this is an atrocity that Josh Allen didn't get back on the field. Well, the greater atrocity was the Bills letting the Chiefs come down in 13 seconds and kick a field goal. Defense and special teams are 2/3 of this game, right? So I understand that the rules are set up for offense. I get that. And that game, the defenses were gashed. They were exhausted. Whoever was going to get the ball last was going to win. But the Bills collapsed on defense, okay? And plus, on special teams, they needed to squib the kick to not kick it off and give them 13 seconds. If you squib the kick, right, they field it and a couple of seconds runs off the clock, even if the guy, declares himself down. That's not smart. So that's coaching and special teams. Having said that, if you want to, and look, they made these overtime rules with the players in mind. They don't want these guys going out there and playing a whole extra quarter. You have more injuries. Look, what happens if the rules are changed, right? And now you have both teams get the ball, right? So the Chiefs get the ball and score a touchdown. Now the Bills get the ball, and on the ensuing possession, the quarterback goes down and he's done for the year, and they win the game anyway. So, the more they play, the more risk there is of injury. But if the NFL wants to say in overtime, both teams have to get the ball, okay? Period. You score a touchdown, then you score a touchdown, then the next score wins. I'm okay with that. You can't just keep it even the whole time. So you score a touchdown. Okay, now you get the ball. You score a touchdown. If you want to end the game, you can go for 2, right? You say, look, we can't stop them. So you can go for 2 and win, or you can tie it up, and then next score wins. And if the other team comes down and kicks a field goal, the game's over. If you want to tweak it to that rule, I'm okay with that. That's fine.
I'd be fine with that. Bryan, I don't know how you feel about what Paul said. I thought Paul made a great point. One, I had not considered the special teams factor of it. I had not considered the squib kick. That's huge. You make a great point about that, Paul, that they should have done that. Secondly, where I agree with you completely on this is that, look, if you're a great defense like the Bills are supposed to be, you can't let them come down and score in 13 seconds. And look, I love Mahomes. I love what the Chiefs did, but the Bills defense is supposed to be really good, and they couldn't stop them. I know Bryan will sit here and tell me about the greatness of Mahomes, and I agree with all that. But you're right. You got to kill the Bills defense here on this. If they change the rule to what you said, which I think is a fine suggestion, I'm cool with that. But I'm not cool with the people that are complaining today about, the Bills should have had a chance. They should have stopped them.
And listen, you know what was interesting? Who didn't complain? Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Did not say one word about it. Kudos to him. And look, the one thing is, you can say the rule should be changed, fine, but everyone knew the rule. It's not like they put the rule in for the game. So it's not like, holy cow, I was blindsided by this. I get it. Look, people just wanted to see more of that game. People wanted to see Josh Allen, and they don't like this. We flip a coin. I say heads, it's tails. You get the ball, I lose. I get that. So if they want to change the rule, that's fine. But it's not an unfair rule, and that was the rule. In all these sports we see, remember, the rules with, you guys are big hoops guys, right? Where, the James Harden rule where, the step back and the verticality, all these 3-pointers that are getting fouls, right? It's a bad rule. I hate the rule where you stick your arm out and then you come up over the arm and it's 3 points. So change the rule. And until they change the rule, then the refs have to call it the way the rule is. And if it's not good, then just change the rule.
I'm pretty much with that. Bryan, do you want to see the OT rule change?
No, I mean, I think the best point here that Paul made was basically like the Bills allowing the Chiefs to just march down the field with 2, long passes and then putting themselves in a position to tie that game and go into overtime. Like the Bills just should have stopped it right there. Like I think Saquon Barkley actually was one of the people that tweeted like, okay, so you win the coin toss and then you have a chance. And then you basically win the game, like the team who gets the first possession or whatever. And I'm like, look, I think that if you are the Chiefs and you have the ball in your own 25, that's already an uphill battle to try to march down the field. Like the Bills had plenty of time to stop them, and the Chiefs just made it easy and carved them up. What you can't have is, because what people are going to want is for both teams to have a chance. And then we're going to end up with the college football rules. And I don't want to see a game that ends regulation 21-21 that becomes 48-45 just because we have to keep doing this. More football is not good for people's health necessarily either. After a long 4-quarter game, you want to add like 8 overtimes? Like, no, I'm not doing that.
We said that the Bills, look, put it this way. If you're the biggest Patrick Mahomes fan in the world, right? And we all do this, right? When you watch a close game and you watch one team score and you immediately look at the scoreboard, right? And you go, 1 minute and 5 seconds. Oh, he left too much time for Brady. He left too much time for, whatever the great quarterback is, Rodgers. You look up 47 seconds. They have one timeout. Oh man, that's too much time. 13 seconds. I did not look at that and say, man, they left them too much time. I just didn't, there's certain things that should not be able to happen. Look, the Dak Prescott play from the week before, right? Where he was trying to run the ball and it lasted 14 seconds.
Yep.
So they couldn't get the play in 14 seconds. And in 13 seconds, that dude went the whole field to kick a field goal pretty much. But having said that, when you lose the coin toss, you don't have to give up a touchdown either. Right. You don't have to give up. It's not, written in stone that the great quarterback has to score a touchdown. So they did. It was but look, it was a great game.
It was a great game. It was amazing. It was a great game. All right, Paul, last thing before we let you go. Who's gonna win the Super Bowl? You got all these teams left. You got the Bengals here that I don't think anybody saw being an AFC Championship game. You got the Chiefs. We've got the Rams, who upset Bryan's boy Tom Brady.
My boy.
and we've got the Niners.
He's out of the playoffs. I'm so tired of him.
Bryan is so thrilled that Brady's out the playoffs.
Oh my god.
Who do you think's winning it out of these four teams? Who do you think's winning it and going to LA?
Well, I'd be shocked if the Bengals win. I really would. I just don't think they're going to go into Kansas City and win a game. I love Joe Burrow. I love Jamar Chase. I don't love their defense necessarily. I mean, that's one of these games. One thing is we love these upsets in the divisional rounds, but it doesn't always lead to the best matchups. In the championships, if you have that. So, I think the Bengals are really feisty and getting better, but I don't think they're going to beat the Chiefs. So I have the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And then, 49ers, Rams. I mean, I usually go with the better quarterback. Stafford's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. The 49ers got some real magic going. They're a really kick-ass, hard team. But I think I would take the Rams. They're playing at home, even though it's both California. So if you give me a Rams-Chiefs Super Bowl, I would take the Chiefs. I would take the Chiefs. The Rams, if Odell gets moving, if Odell is even better. We've seen highlights from Odell because the other guy you can't stop. You can't stop Cooper Kupp. So if you're going to double him and Odell kind of gets in groove here and is trying to make a case to stay with the Rams, the Rams might be kind of unstoppable. But and the Rams have a great front line on defense. But Mahomes, I'm not picking against Mahomes. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough for me because I like Mahomes, and then with the Rams, I want to go rock with Aaron Donald, University of Pitt alum. I want to root for him, but I'm here for that. I think that's what the Super Bowl is going to be too, Paul. I'm here for it. I want to see it. I think it will be a fantastic Super Bowl. So hopefully we get that. But I'm with you. I don't think I can bet against the Chiefs. I don't think I can.
And it would be a home game for the Rams. Don't forget.
That is true. I'm forgetting about that.
And I've been at that stadium. The Giants played at SoFi Stadium.
Yeah.
And it is unbelievable. Look, I've been in Dallas, at AT&T Stadium, which is an unbelievable football palace. But SoFi Stadium is the way it's built. It's covered, but it's open on the sides. It's very LA. It's got a funky in the round video screens. It is a spectacular football building, and it will be a spectacular Super Bowl there. And if the Rams are there, that will be pretty wild.
Now, I don't know if this will the Post will they be sending you for Super Bowl coverage? Well, okay.
Yes, sir. I will be there. Yeah,
you will be there for Super Bowl coverage. Were you at the Super Bowl in 2015 in Arizona with me? That was Pat's. What was it? Pat Seahawks when Pete Carroll overthought things.
I've been live at every Super Bowl since 1995, except for the pandemic.
You see what happened right there, Bryan? Another way to make you feel old. I mean, well, us feel old, you feel young. That's what happened there. That's what happened. That's Paul Schwartz. Paul Schwartz, beat writer for the New York Giants, also part of the Big Blue Rush podcast on the New York Post Network with Jake Brown and Lawrence Tynes. Definitely check him out. Paul, thank you for joining us on the Ain't Hard to Sell podcast. We definitely got to have you back again, for sure.
Sure. As long as it's nice and warm, I'll come back anytime.
Never cold here. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you.
One time for your mind, one time. One time for your mind, one time.
One time for your mind. Got some interesting stuff to talk about this week. This week, it might surprise people. I have a little bit more of the rant. Bryan has a little bit more of the entertainment. Yeah. Bryan, what you got this week? You're laughing because this is like Trading Places. That's what this is.
Have you heard of this show, Dex, on HBO Max called The Peacemaker?
No, I have not at all.
Okay, so
except it sounds the opposite of anything that Bryan will watch because it's about peace, not violence. So Peacemaker does not sound like something Bryan would be watching.
Nah, there's violence in it.
You know what? I'm sorry, people. What a shock. There's violence here. I'm so sorry.
I'm not going to give too much away, and I'm also only a couple episodes in. But, we're all trying to find time. Not all of us, but a lot of people are trying to find time for new shows, new entertainment, being that sports. It's a heavy sports time. Like, I had no time for anything this weekend except for the NFL games, some NBA stuff, and I had a lot of boxing and MMA Saturday. Gary Russell Jr., by the way, upset loss. So that was surprising to some people. I actually predicted that. But Peacemaker is a show on HBO Max that stars John Cena, who has become a good actor, which I sort of saw this coming early on, being that, I've watched him for years in wrestling or whatever the case may be. and he's been getting more important roles and bigger roles and things of that nature, and he's sort of I guess found his sort of his voice, if you will, or his sort of shtick. And I remember, Dex, I don't know, have you ever seen Trainwreck when it came out, the Amy Schumer movie?
That is the one that had LeBron in it, right?
LeBron and Amari
No,
Stoudemire.
I did not see that. I know of the movie, but I did not see it.
John Cena was a pretty big part to that movie, and this was in 2015, and you could sort of see from a movie standpoint, because if you watch wrestling, you already know he's funny, he has comedic chops or whatever. Now you see it in a movie, it's a little bit of a different thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Peacemaker is kind of it's kind of a comedy. I think it probably skews even more that way than kind of, but it's very funny. The first couple episodes that I've seen. He's the star of it. There's other actors that you would probably know from other shows and things of that nature that I'm blanking on their real names right now because I got to do more research. I've kind of just watched the show because my boy Brandon just came up in my crib and was like, yo, you should watch this because Cena's in it and we're big wrestling fans. So we gave it a shot.
Yeah, all you wrestling fans.
It's good. It's interesting. A lot of people the applause that I've seen, people were saying HBO Max got one. This is really good, et cetera, et cetera. It's kind of to compare it to something else. I heard Dan Le Batard compare it to Deadpool before I started watching it. And now that I've seen a couple episodes, I was like, okay, that's an interesting comparison because it's kind of like this superhero who's in on the joke. And I kind of like that because I'm not somebody who watches it's difficult for me to gravitate towards things that aren't grounded in reality, right? Where it's too superhero based, right?
Wait.
What?
It's difficult for you to watch things that aren't grounded in reality, but you like wrestling?
Yeah. Because wrestling, it's not like there's freaking, they have Martians and they're fucking fighting on planets and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's not that. They're still doing. They
might as well.
They're still doing the moves and hitting each other with chairs and putting each other through tables, probably too often if you ask some people. But et cetera, et cetera. And wrestling haven't been hitting the same lately, but we'll see because now it's Royal Rumble season. You know what I'm saying? It's Royal Rumble this weekend and it's going to be on Saturday, so it's not going to interfere with the NFL. But anyway.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
I don't mean to stop you one time for your mind here.
Yes.
I need to do this because since the last time we had a big wrestling discussion and we had Dan Serafin on, I have not watched any wrestling event. And I feel when growing up, I used to like to watch the Royal Rumble. You know what I'm saying? The Royal Rumble.
It's Saturday this year, not Sunday.
It's Saturday, not Sunday this year. I think I'm going to take a peek. I'm going to take a peek and look into the Royal Rumble. Back to what you have to say. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And it's on Peacock now. So if you have the Peacock, then you're good. Or the cock. The cock, as Jim Cornette calls it.
I'm not doing that, but okay.
So Peacemaker's very entertaining so far. I like stuff that's usually grounded in reality. I like Splinter Cell, for example, is one of my favorite video game series. I like sports games and things of that nature and storytelling, right? So this has elements of that, but it has some superhero stuff in it, obviously because it's superhero, but he's not somebody who this isn't a show that I feel takes itself super seriously. There was a good amount of humor to where I'm like, okay, I'm in. So I think people should check it out because it got on my radar and I didn't think it would. And it probably only did because Cena's a part of it and I was just curious, but I don't watch everything Cena does. You know what I mean? I didn't like all the Marine movies, for example. So, I think it's something that at HBO Max, there's a reason they took a chance on it. And we've talked about this, Dex. We may not like every single thing HBO Max does, but HBO has a high slugging percentage. And when they're in on something, you could expect a certain amount of quality and respect for that project. So y'all should check it out. And I'm definitely I'm gonna power through the rest of season 1 as that continues to drop.
All right, I'm going to check that out. There's a bunch of stuff that's not HBO proper, but HBO Max related series that I have yet to check out. I did watch one last year called Industry, which was really good, but there's some really good stuff that's on HBO Max that they've been giving opportunities to different storytellers. So I actually do want to check that out because I think they've had some good stuff. So that's dope. Peacemaker, check that out. This Brian's One Time for Your Mind. Now, for me, I got a little bit of a rant, and this involves something I've dealt with throughout my career and sometime.
I'm gonna let people know I'm already co-signing this.
Yeah,
I'm already co-signing this. I already know where this is going.
Bryan knows it's going. I texted him about it last week, and I was like, "Yo, this is my one time for your mind this week." Shout out to all my fellow video journalists out there. If you've been working out in the field, I don't care if you've done news, well, particularly if you've done news, because this kind of stuff you pretty much is avoidable in sports, okay? News, or you do weather reporting like I used to do at one time, this stuff is kind of unavoidable. But let me make sure I get this stuff clear here. And you might have seen this because it was all over the place, viral. Reporter for WSAZ in Charleston, West Virginia. West Virginia is not a place you really want to be working. Shout out to my former coworker, Katie Lusso. She used to work in West Virginia. I believe in Charleston too, actually. I don't know if it was that exact station, but shout out to her. Tori Yorgi is a reporter for WSAZ TV in Charleston, West Virginia. It was her last week of work because she then took a job with WTAE in Pittsburgh. Shout out to TAE. My mentor, Jamoke Davis, used to work there as a producer. But she was doing a live shot. And I'm going to get into my thoughts on live shots, okay? She was doing a live shot. And here's what happened, folks. She was struck by a car during the live shot. Now, I forgot what she was reporting on, but she was in a parking lot area and the car came and hit her. And what was amazing to me, and this is where I got to put this to camera for those watching, I got to put this back on Bryan. Bryan, I just want to know something. You have never done a live shot before outside of doing live silent reporting for a game. So technically not true. Bryan has been live on camera for a game produced by
La Cultura. That counts.
It wasn't live, but
I mean,
on the scene, it wasn't live. You were allowed to. Anyway, you get my point.
Semantics.
Semantics. But if it's live, it's being broadcast. If a car came and hit you, are you getting... Which is crazy to ask. I just do think this is a fair question. It's very small. It's small.
Am I finishing the live shot?
Yes. And are you getting up? Even if you thought you could get up.
You know, I'm thinking about this, right? I think, Dex, put the camera back on you. I need to see your reaction to this. Because I think I'm thinking like, because I'm not trying to say like I'm that dude, but one of two things I feel like will happen instinctively. One, which is probably less likely than two. One, I would probably get up and finish the report, but be annoyed about it. Two, I think I might seek the driver out, if you know what I mean. Like I might try to
both of those emotions are completely
like I might not finish the report. I might be like, who the fuck hit me? And then get up.
You don't want to do that on live TV, even though I think that's totally wrong. Like
I mean, if it's my last week.
Yeah, fair point. Also, there are things that have happened to people on live TV that I'm going to get to in a second that have been threatening to their life from people and other things. Now, there's a couple. This is very layered here for me.
Yeah.
And myself and a lot of other reporters, and there's a fantastic article in the New York Times that was written by Amanda Holpuch. Just want to get it right. It's titled "Reporters Hit by Car in Air Striking Nerve with TV Journalists." Look, it struck a nerve with me. It struck a nerve with me because I've been out doing live shots. What should be noted about this, a live shot is when you're broadcasting live, giving a news report back, and I'll get into my feelings on live shots. I have a bunch of feelings on this. But here's the thing about this live shot that it appears to be. It appears that the reporter, and I want to get the reporter's name correctly again, Tori Yorgi, was doing this live shot on his own. Most times people think about news, you think about the reporter out there, you think about the camera person out there. That's not how it always goes down in these small markets. That's not how it always goes down in some of these stations. Sometimes you're shooting it by yourself. You know who's shooting live shots by themselves? Me. You know who's shooting live shots by themselves at one point for the previous network I used to work for in storms, in snow, heavy wind, dangerous conditions? Me. You know who didn't feel safe? Me. You know who should never be doing that? Anybody. Nobody should be doing any of this stuff because it's not safe. If Tori was out there by herself shooting this live shot, it's not safe. Here's why it's not safe, folks. When you're shooting a live shot, especially at night, you want to be in a place, this is just safety 101. You should be in a place where you should be able to see both sides of you, right? People know that. If you lived in an urban area, you want to be able to know what's going on around you at all times. But when you're doing a live shot, just like I am right now doing this podcast and we have a video cast, I'm looking directly into the camera. Now, I might see some things in my peripheral, but when you're locked in, zoned in on that live shot, you might not see that at all whatsoever. You might not know what's going on. That's why having a cameraman is great because you can have a set of eyes. But Bryan, let's get the camera back on Bryan. Why do you think these stations allow people, including at my previous employer, allow people to do these live shots by themselves in inclement weather, in dangerous conditions, in bad neighborhoods, at night, dark? Not that crime necessarily happens more at night. That's not necessarily true. But in the dark, not well lit, all this stuff. Why do you think that occurs, Mr. Fonseca?
Oh, because we want to allocate our resources to different means, et cetera, which basically means that they're cheap. They're cheap and don't want to send a camera person out there. They just want you, the reporter, to do all the work, set up your own live shot, make sure that you're correctly framed and do all those things as opposed to having somebody else out there so that, in the event that there's a car about to ram your ass over, they can actually be like, hey, yo, watch it, step aside real quick, or tell the car to like, hold on, we're about to shoot this.
Let me pull people behind the curtain. Yes, Bryan is correct about that. Everything's hit on. Bryan said it simply because they cheat, because they don't want to, because they know so many people want opportunities to get on airs, particularly in smaller markets. And I really want to say this to my reporters who work in smaller markets, who know the grind of one-man banding, know the grind of doing that, having to shoot their own live shots, but then they're put in situations that are unsafe, that's dangerous. And a lot of people that commented in this New York Times article were a lot of former reporters, because a lot of current reporters for these networks, they don't want to sometimes speak out. And I understand it because they don't want to lose opportunities. They don't want to mess up the bread. I get all that. But a lot of former reporters for networks are speaking out. And look, for me, part of it, this is why I didn't really want to be involved with certain things for local news. It's not for stuff I just did when I worked at AccuWeather, where I was absolutely in dangerous situations doing live shots, where other people, other broadcasters commented about it, right? There were things I had to do for myself. Other broadcasters I work with, other journalists also complained about it. You think the company cared? They didn't care. They're like, yo, you better go out there and keep doing them live shots. It's ridiculous. I've talked with other journalists about this. I've sent this video and talked to fellow journalists about it who've done one-man band, who are about my age. And when you get older, you're like, man, I'm not trying to do that anymore. And I'm not shaming Tori. I understand why she did it. I wouldn't have got up. Because let me tell y'all something to pull it behind the curtain. These stations in these small markets, when people are trying to get experience, they don't pay that well. So it paid to stay on the floor. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It paid to stay on the floor. It didn't pay to get up. I don't think there's a great. I understand some people are saying, look, there's a great honor in her finishing the live shot and all that. Yeah, maybe. It's not. There's no honor in the company for sending her out there in a dangerous situation. And here's the thing: and if you want to, it was dark. She's in a parking lot. There's no reflective vest for her. There's no protective gear. And let me pull another layer behind the curtain, Bryan, that I just don't feel about. And let me say this: live shots are overrated.
Yes.
You don't need them that much. Unless something is developing or continuously going on that somebody can see behind you, you don't need me to stand outside the building of some place where there was a robbery when nothing else is going on. The robbery happened. There's this value in TV news is somehow if you stand there and you report from there, it makes you more of a reporter and do it live. And people still go for this. It's so outdated. It's so overrated. Most live shots don't make sense, right? Like one of the things I used to say, Bryan, is when I did weather reporting and there was a storm, right? You don't need to see me out in the storm to tell you how bad it was. Like, do you really need to see me out there to tell you how bad it was? Hey, I'm out here. The winds are picking up. Yo, but it's not safe for anybody to be out, but I'm out there, right? Like that never made any sense to me, right? Like what's the value in that? I'm not saying that people don't need to see it. I'm not saying people don't need to see images, but do we need to put a person out there risking their life in dangerous situations? At least in those situations, just to be clear, in hurricanes, I did have a camera person. But I've been in snowstorms where I did not. I've been in heavy rain, pouring rain, tropical storms where I did not. That's crazy. They shouldn't do that. Like, could we do better in the industry? But I really think, Bryan, you talked about this last week. This is why I thought it was important to bring this up. Bryan said last week, until people start fighting for things for themselves to demand better, nothing is going to change. So until journalists start saying, nah, and I'm hoping the younger journalists do this. This is my plea to younger journalists than me. Coming in, I know you're trying to get your opportunity. I know there's still a thought of going through local markets, small markets is a way to go, even though it looks like it's dying. I know that there's this thing to do that. But yo, you got to think better about yourself. You got to think better about your safety. You don't have to be hit by a car like Tori, because what if Tori got hit by a car and that was worse? What if she couldn't physically get up? What if she was not here anymore? seriously hurt in the hospital, or worse, dead.
Yeah.
That's what's going to come to for us to start caring about reporter safety. Like, this is what it has to happen for us to care about reporter safety. Shame on you, television stations, just particularly local TV stations. Y'all don't have to be that cheap, because it's not going to matter, or that costs when somebody dies. So it's on the television stations for sure. I am not letting them off the hook, but it's on us journalists to stand up and say, no more. We don't got to do this. You don't have to send this young woman or man out to some neighborhood late at night that's not safe to do a live shot by themselves, or anywhere. Don't have to do this. We could be better. It's time to evolve past that. I think live shots are a little bit overrated, but even if you don't feel the way I feel on that, we don't have to do live shots in dangerous situations anymore. It's 2022. Can we evolve past that? This shouldn't happen where this has to happen again. That's my rant. That's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that. Anything to add, Bryan?
No, I think you hit it out of the park. And I think that one man banding, while there's a certain pride in it, like there's a lot of people, specifically of your generation, that take pride in, being able to, shoot their own stuff and cut their own clips and edit their own film and, write their own scripts and things of that nature. I think there's a value to learning how to do all those things. But I also think that if like one is going to constantly take away from the other, and if you're somebody who is striving to be great at being on camera, having to do the heavy lifting elsewhere is going to take away from that. And I think that, if you're going to really be a legit station that cares about the people that they're putting on air, you should probably allocate some more resources that you do have. Generally speaking, you probably do have, to give them a video producer, a shooter, just somebody out there with them. Shit. And we didn't even, Dex, you didn't even get into you got into the dangerous situations about the elements, but how many examples have we seen of women in particular being out, one man banding themselves, being harassed by men, specifically in big cities or even in small cities, but especially in big cities and crowded areas. Like, I don't think the elements need to be dangerous for someone to be at risk. I also think that if you're putting somebody out there, and not that you're saying that, you're obviously not, and you're with others, but I think that if you're out there in a crowded area doing a live shot from like a Coachella or something like that, like just an event where there's a lot of people, people are going to be looking at you like, oh, what's this? I'm sure that there are incidents that we don't know about at local stations of somebody stealing equipment from somebody who was doing their live shot. You know what I mean?
That's happened. A former coworker it was well documented who her purse was stolen. Somebody came and tried to snatch it out of the car. And I kid you not, this was after 2 days prior. She had said to me she felt unsafe going to certain neighborhoods to even do live shots or as lives alone. She had just said it to me, and then 2 days later, it happened that somebody snatched her purse out of her car while she was working on the story. So we've seen this stuff happen. Bryan, you bring up a great point about harassment of female reporters in the field. Harassment happens to a lot of reporters. There are times you're doing live shots, people will try to distract you. I've had this happen to me, and luckily I had a camera person to be able to get that person away. There is value in that camera person because their eyes on your shot, but also eyes on anything else going around. So while you're locked in, somebody might do that. I've had people try to approach and come into this shot. I've had people come into my shot. I've had all this stuff happen. I've had, while doing a live shot, people yelling at me, F the station, or all the stuff has happened.
Yeah.
And so if I wasn't by myself in those situations, thankfully the station I was working for did not have you do live shots alone. So that's beautiful to say, but that's not the situation for everybody. And it's dangerous. You're a target when that happens. We've seen reporters get attacked. We talked about this with Michelle Yu when she was on here last year. We're talking about Stop Asian Hate. And Safan Kim, who's a reporter for WABC New York, somebody literally came up and attacked him on air. And he had to throw hands. He did what he had to do, rightfully so. But that's what you got to do. This is not, you can't put reporters out here just out there on their own. Man, can't happen. Stations got to do better. Stop being cheap. Bryan's right, though. Got to stop being cheap. All right. That's it for this episode of the Ain't Hard to Tell podcast, episode 209. Huge thank you to my guy, Paul Schwartz, for the New York Post for joining us. We appreciate him for doing that. Also, want to remind everybody, please check out our promotion with Prize Picks. Use the promo code BACKPACK They will match your first deposit up to $100 if you choose to do that. Really good to do that. Be sure to follow the Ain't Hard to Sell podcast on all social media platforms. We're on Twitter. We're on IG. Give us that follow. And you want to donate to us? Don't be cheap. You can support Backpack Broadcasting via Patreon. Do that. We want to thank all our patrons who support us and allow us to do this great podcast for you each and every week. We got a lot more good stuff coming up this year. Bryan and I, we got a lot of good stuff cooking up a lot of guests. We got some really good things that we are excited about in this new year. 2020 is a good year. We're out here to get it. Keep these numbers climbing. Bryan's eyes on 300 episodes. You know his eyes on 300 episodes. You know he's focused on that.
250 also. Like 250 is a big number.
That's right.
41 to go. How many weeks left in the year? More than that. Like by the end of 2022, you know what I'm saying? Like might hit that 250. You know what I mean?
Bryan is all about enjoying the milestones, as you should. You should enjoy these milestones. You should. For Bryan Fonseca, I'm Dexter Henry. Till we reach that next milestone of 210. Peace, y'all.